Good evening all. My name is Shambhu Shankar. I'll be taking you through the English section for the GATE examination, the aptitude section of the GATE examination. So I'll be going through the English portion of it. So where shall we begin with? So the basic grammar, I guess, is what we need to know in this examination. So let's begin from the beginning. So hope all of you must have some basic idea about English grammar, but still I'll take you through each and every sections one by one. Okay, so the first portion of any English grammar begins with nouns. I hope you are all aware of the word noun. So what is a noun? So to put it very simple, noun is a naming word. So a word that we use to name a thing, a place, an animal. So these are all nouns. So and there are so many different types of nouns. So what the first type is called a proper noun, and the specialty with proper noun is that it will always begin with a capital letter. So it could be, what is a proper noun? Proper noun could be the name of a specific person, your name, my name. It could be the name of a place like the USA, like Japan, India, or it could be names of some places that exist in plural. It could be the name of places that exist in plural. What would be an example for that? As I said, the United States of America, the United Arab Emirates, the United not United Kingdom, but yeah. So Emirates, States of America, all these becomes plural, and yet they are proper nouns. And then comes the name of a distinct animal. Example would be dog, cat, cow, all these are proper nouns. And also the name of an object. So what would be the name of an object? Say a pen, a pencil, say a box, anything. So these all becomes proper nouns. Or a name of an object could be something like the Indus, the Indus Valley civilization, the Indus, or the Kohinoor. So these are the gem that we all know of. So these are all proper nouns. Then there are common nouns. There are the second one is the common nouns, and they would be capitalized only if that noun is placed at the beginning of a sentence. So what could be common nouns? So an individual belonging to a class of people, that could be a common noun. Say something like a scientist. So there are so many scientists, so you are referring to one particular scientist. So a scientist is a common noun. Doctor, say teacher, all becomes common nouns. And when it comes to animals, a common noun, there are so many breeds of dogs, so a dog becomes a common noun. And horse, again cat, these are all common nouns. So when you generalize things together, that is called a common noun. And then a common noun example for things would be water, bridge, table. These all becomes common nouns. Okay, so if you have got yourself familiar with these two, then let me move to the third one, which is called the abstract noun. So an abstract noun is something you use to name a quality or a state of mind, an attitude or an idea. These are all abstract nouns. So these are not individuals, these are not animals, these are not things. It doesn't have any physical form. So it can be a quality, something like, tall, beauty, or smart. These are all abstract nouns. Then a noun which is used to define a state of mind. So what would be that? I'm happy, or happiness, pleasure, belief. These are all state of mind. It's a state. You only feel these things. Then an attitude can also be classified as an abstract noun. So something like a example for attitude would be you're very rude, tolerant, angry. So these all becomes abstract nouns. Then anything that can be referred to as an idea can also be an abstract noun. So something like, say, feminism, communism, Marxism, idealism, all these isms, these things becomes an abstract noun under an idea. Hope you are able to follow what I am saying. If there is anything, you please feel free to give me a chat so that I can answer. So let's just move to the next form of nouns, which is called a collective noun. So it is collective noun is a group of people or animals. So anything that is that a word that we use to define a group of people or animals is called a collective noun. A herd of sheep, or a fleet of car, or what do you call it? Okay, let's come to audience. So people who have gathered to witness an event, so they are audience. So it becomes a collective noun. Family, all members in one particular family. So family is a collective noun. Then there is something called a verbal noun. These are nouns formed from verbs and are also called gerunds. So nouns which are formed from verbs. So what is a verb? It's an action word. A word that you use to describe an action is called a verb. So a verbal noun is something formed from verbs. So laughing is a healthy habit. So laughing becomes a verbal noun. Why is laughing a verbal noun? Because it defines an action. You're doing something. Walking is a good exercise. So walking becomes a verbal noun. Then there is compound nouns. Nouns that are made up of two or more words. So it's not always that a noun should only be a single word. If you are using more than two words or more than a single word, two or more words to form a collective word, then it becomes a compound noun. So examples could be a car park, paper clip, two words, paper clip, it becomes a compound noun. So these are the basic types of nouns. So there are 6 different varieties of nouns. Just to give you a what should I say, I'll just repeat it once again. The first is a proper noun, which is used to specify a person, a place, names of some places that exist in plural, name of a distinct animal or a creature, name of an object. So these are all proper nouns. Common nouns defines general. In general, what do you call a group of so my name is Shambhu Shankar, and who am I? I am a human. So Shambhu Shankar is a proper noun. Common noun is I am a human. That's it. And I am a teacher, then teacher becomes a common noun. Abstract nouns that defines a quality, a state of mind, attitude, or an idea. All these becomes abstract nouns. Examples are for quality, smartness, happiness. Beauty, I can say. State of mind would be happiness or pleasure, belief, all these things. An attitude is tolerant, rude, angry, or all these things becomes attitude. An idea, any word that usually ends with ism, ism. So feminism, Marxism, communalism, all these becomes abstract nouns. The next one is collective nouns. So a word that we use to call things, a group of people or animals. So audience, family, a committee, fleet, herd, all these things becomes collective nouns. Verbal nouns, a noun which is formed by a verb, using a verb. What is a verb? It's an action word. So laughing is a healthy habit. So laughing becomes a verbal noun. Then compound nouns, these are nouns formed by combining 2 or more words. Paperclip, car park, board of studies, board of cricket, all these becomes compound nouns. So now let's talk about countable and uncountable nouns. Nouns which refer to things that can be counted are called countable nouns. Quite straightforward, right? Nouns which refer to things that can be counted are called countable nouns. They exist in singular or plural forms. They could exist in singular or plural forms. They can be preceded by determiners according to the singular or plural forms of nouns. We'll get to that. So examples would be countable noun, one tree, a tree, this tree, every tree, either tree. Then in plural, 2 trees, several trees, few trees, many trees. These are all countable. So which can be counted. Then there are the uncountable nouns. So things which you cannot usually count so easily. So what could be that? Say some rice. Can you give me some rice? You cannot say I need this many grains of rice, right? You just say some rice. So that becomes an uncountable noun. Or even if you just say the rice was really nice, or the rice was really tasty, good. Again, the rice, you do not know how many grains was there in that. So you just call it as rice, no matter what the number it represents. So all these becomes uncountable nouns. So the next in the list would be gender. So how many genders can we identify? So there are 3 genders of nouns in English language. I mean, it's the same almost in any language, but the male, the female, and then the neutral one. So what could be examples of the male gender? Man, lion, tiger, all these becomes masculine or male gender. What comes under the female? Woman, lion. What would be the female of a lion? Lioness. What is the female of a tiger? That would be tigress. Okay, what would be if I say elephant? What is the gender? So when you basically say elephant, you are generally referring to a male elephant, or else you will have to say she elephant. So because that word doesn't have something like a tigress or a lioness, we do not have a specific word for a female elephant. So we say she elephant. There are you will come across many words like that where you will have to use a he or a she before the noun. Then there is the neutral one, so which doesn't things which doesn't usually have a gender. So simple things like a laptop, pen, flower, brush, paint, all these things. Then common nouns often have a different masculine and feminine forms. So which form of nouns would have a masculine and a feminine, or the male or the female genders? Common nouns usually have that. Not proper nouns, because proper nouns we are specifically saying the name. So it doesn't matter what the gender is. But when you are talking about common nouns, then you have a gender. Son, then the the feminine would be daughter, prince, princess, king, queen, count, countess, nephew. The feminine would be niece, N-I-E-C-E, niece. Gentleman, lady. Wizard, the feminine would be a witch. Landlord, landlady. So these are the things. Now since we have looked at nouns, let us see how we can make plurals. If there are more than one, then how can we make plurals out of nouns? Usually we make plurals by the most common thing that we do is by adding an s or an es at the end of the word. So seed becomes seeds, cat becomes cats, dog becomes dogs. And then there are many other different ways which we can form plurals, not just by adding an s or an es. We can also add ies. An example would be army, armies, territory, territories, country, countries. And now, so the general rule that you will have to follow is that if a noun or a word ends with y, the letter y, then the plural of it would end with ies. That is how you will find that out. Army, territory, country, these are words that ends with y. So the plural would be, replace that y with ies. Now if the word ends with the word f, then the plural would be, replace that f with ves. Example would be leaf, the plural would be leaves. I am replacing that f with ves, leaves. Scarf, scarves. Then some words show irregular plural formation, such as, it doesn't apply. I mean, you cannot just add an ies or es or ves and make a plural out of any noun. So these are called irregular plurals. An example would be man. The plural is men. Women, woman, women. Another would be foot. What would be the plural of foot? It would be feet. Goose, the plural would be geese. I can't think of many words right now, but yeah, there are so many irregular plurals. Then the plural forms of compound nouns. So we have seen what a compound noun is. They are formed of two or more words. Car park, paperclip, all these things. The plural form of compound nouns usually end with s or es. So it's easy to understand. So car park, car parks. Paperclip, paperclips. Board of studies, what would be the plural of that? Board of studies, the plural would be boards of studies, not board of studies is, no, it becomes boards of studies. So the first word would become the plural. The plural of sister-in-law or brother-in-law would be brothers-in-law or sisters-in-law. Then there are certain nouns. You'd be surprised to know that the plural is also that same word. You don't make any addition or subtraction from that. An example, a very common mistake that we all make, the plural for sheep is sheep, not sheeps. The plural for deer is deer, not deers. Then certain nouns are used only in their plural forms. There are certain words which we only use it as a plural form. It doesn't have a singular form. Example would be pants, P-A-N-T-S, pants, jeans, shorts, scissors. Scissors, a pair of scissors is what you call it. It exists only in plural form. It doesn't have a singular form, because it has, if to logically understand that, all these objects have two units in the same one. The pants have, obviously two legs are there, so, and it's a single, the two units come together to form a single form, so it's always a plural. Scissors, again, there are two hands to a scissors. So then certain nouns appear to be plural but are treated as singular. Now this might be a little bit confusing, but Just take a good breath and let's see. There are certain nouns which would appear to be plural because there is an S or something at the end of the word, but they are usually singular. Example would be news, N-E-W-S, news. It is a singular, not plural. Then there is mathematics, physics, politics, all these things. They are, when you are saying it, you don't mean that they are plural, they are singular again. Now let's look at a particular word which most of us make a mistake of. The word is media. It sounds like singular, right? But it is actually plural. And there is no word in English called medias. media, media itself is plural. What would be the singular of media? That would be medium, not medias. Media is plural, medium is singular. So that's basically talking about nouns. Now if you have anything, any doubts, any questions from your side, I'm open to that. You can chat and ask me the questions. All right, or should I just proceed to the next one, which is verbs. It's a very common one, and as I already said, verbs are nothing but words that defines an action. So when something is happening, you use a word to describe that. So a word that describes an action is called a verb. So in grammatical terms, we can say verbs are words that indicate action, such as to drink, to run, to wash, to clean. All these things become verbs. But not all verbs indicate physical actions. ഓക്കെ, ഇതിങ്ങനെ എടുത്ത് പൊക്കോണ്ടിരിക്കാൻ പറ്റില്ല, അതാണ് ഞാൻ ചോദിക്കുന്നത്. എന്താണ് ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ, ഇത് ഇങ്ങനെ പോയി പെട്ടെന്ന് തീർന്നു. അതാണ് ഞാൻ ആലോചിക്കുന്നത്. ഞാൻ മാക്സിമം സ്ലോയിൽ പോവാണ്, പക്ഷെ എന്നാലും ഈസിലി പെട്ടെന്ന് തീരും. ഇതിപ്പോൾ ഞാൻ ഇത് തന്നെ നാളെയും വന്ന് ഇത് സെയിം സാധനം തന്നെ ചെയ്യേണ്ടി വരും. റെക്കോർഡഡ് ആയിരുന്നു, പിന്നെ നമുക്കൊരു ഓപ്ഷൻ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. നടന്നുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുകയാണോ ഇപ്പോൾ? ഓക്കെ, അപ്പം ഞാൻ ഈ ഒരു 2 സെക്ഷനും കൂടെ എടുത്തിട്ട് അങ്ങ് നിർത്താം. കാര്യം ഇത് ഇങ്ങനെയാണ് നമ്മൾ പഠിപ്പിക്കുന്നത്. ഇപ്പം നമ്മൾ അങ്ങോട്ട് അസൈൻമെൻറ്റ്സ് കൊടുക്കും അങ്ങനെ, പക്ഷേ ഇതിലിപ്പോൾ ഞാൻ എന്താ ചെയ്യും? എനിക്കറിയില്ല, അതാ കാര്യം. ഞാൻ ആദ്യമായിട്ട് ആയതുകൊണ്ടൊരു ലാൻഡ് ഞാൻ നോക്കാം. അപ്പം ഇത് അവർക്കത് കാണുമോ? ഓക്കെ, ഞാൻ ചെയ്തോളാം. All right, sorry, there was a little bit of a technical issue in between. I'm back. So we have looked at nouns. So I'll just give a quick revision for that. I'll if you can just see this. So the different types of nouns, we have seen the different types of nouns. Then we looked at the countables and the uncountables. We looked at the gender. Then how we form plurals. We saw we can make plurals of words by adding an s or an es, ies, ves. Or then there are irregular plurals like woman becomes women, man becomes men, child becomes children, not child's children, it becomes children, food becomes feet, goose becomes geese, medium becomes media. Then plural forms, compound words. When it comes to compound words, you can form plurals by adding an s or an es at the end, but you should also look at the context. Blackboards would become blackboard would become blackboards, but a brother-in-law, the plural of it would become brothers-in-law. So you will have to look at which word, if there are more than one word, if it's a compound word, then you will have to look at which word needs to be plural. So brothers-in-law, the brother is the plural, has to become the plural, not law. So you cannot add the s or the es at the end of law. Then certain words, they only exist as plurals, like scissors, jeans, pants, examples that we saw. Then there are words for which the singular and the plural are the same word. So buck, sheep, deer, grouse, and all those things. Then there are certain words which may appear to be plural, but it should be treated as singular. So politics, news, mathematics, physics, economics, all these things has to be treated as singular. Then uncountable nouns. We have looked at countables and uncountables. There are certain words which we cannot, we cannot just count and say. So uncountable nouns doesn't have a plural form because they refer to a group of things in general. So when you say rise, you cannot say rices or snow the word snow doesn't have a plural. It's an uncountable noun. Sugar, you don't say sugars. Butter, you cannot say butters. Rain, it's a very commonly mistaken word. We say we have been facing much rains. No, actually, when you say rains, it becomes a verb. It's raining, or it rains. That is how the word rains becomes. It rains is not a plural of rain. Rain in itself is plural. Then moving on to the next one, verbs. As I said, verbs are nothing but action words. So words which are used to describe an action are called verbs. To drink, to run, to wash, to clean, etc. But not all verbs indicate a physical action. It needn't be a physical action, it could be something else too. We'll get into that. They can also express actions that happen in our mind. So something that is happening in our mind can also be a verb, like thinking. Thinking doesn't have a physical form to it, like washing, like running. It doesn't have a physical form. I am thinking. Words such as to think, to guess, I guess it's going to rain, or words like sympathize, empathize. These are all words because there is an action, but it cannot be measured in physical form. So words, let's look at some of the words that indicate a physical action. So that's quite easy for you to understand. So it's basically things like to sing, to write, to run, to walk, etc. Words that indicate an action in mind which doesn't have a physical form. To dream, to think, to contemplate, we say. So these are all verbs again, because it is defining an action which doesn't have a physical form. Then words that expresses a state of being or feeling. Is, was, were, has, have, had. It has been raining. So which is the verb? Has been. Becomes, so you can just mark these words: is, was, were, W-E-R-E, were, has, have, and had. These are all verbs. Whenever you see these words in a sentence, they are a verb. They represent a verb. Now there is a speciality with verbs. So they change form according to tense, number, person, and voice. So the verbs changes its form depending on what action or whose action it is describing. The old woman walked away with the first prize. So walked becomes the verb. Now the second, then there are the number and the person of nouns will change the verb in the present tense. So what is that? The number and person of the nouns again changes the verb form. So we always called it the subject verb agreement. So if it is a plural, then what should be the verb? If it is a singular, then what should be the verb? Example, the girls go out for jogging every day. The girls go out, not goes. So go is the verb here. The girls, because it is plural, so if the subject is plural, then the verb becomes singular. If the subject is singular, then the verb becomes plural. The girls go out for jogging every day. The girl goes out for jogging every day. That's how you use that. And when you are using pronouns like I, he, she, we, so I is a singular, right? So this is the exception in the rule of the verb changing its form. When I use the word I is singular, so naturally should be I walks every day, right? But no, that is not how it is. It is I walk every day. But when we use the word he or she, then we use the word walks, because he or she becomes singular. He walks every day, she walks every day. They, then it becomes plural, so the verb would be singular. They walk every day. Now there is what happens to a verb when you use the letters ed at the end. So now we are talking about passive and active verbs. Okay. What would be what would be an active verb? Active verb is something which is happening then, right now, right at that moment. What becomes passive? You are referring to something that happened, something that happened in the past, an event that has passed. So the little girl opened the door is an active voice. The little girl opened the door. So how can you make this into a passive voice? The door was opened by the little girl. So that becomes a passive voice. Then there are regular and irregular verbs. The regular and irregular verbs, they are determined by their past principle and simple past tense forms. We will get into the tense forms later, but let us just look at the irregular verbs. So judge becomes judged by adding a d or ed at the end. Study becomes studied, hurry becomes hurried. So irregular verbs have dissimilar forms of simple past tense and past participle. They are also called strong verbs. So irregular verbs have dissimilar forms of simple past tense and past participle. So beat becomes, simple past of beat would be beat, past participle would be beaten. But then there are also verbs, and if you look at certain words, the simple past and the past participle of these words would be the same word. It will not change. So something like hit, HIT, the past participle or the simple past is always hit. There is no word called hitted. No, there is nothing like that. It is always hit, that's it. Bet, then cut. So these are some of the examples. I cut my hand. So even I cut my hand yesterday, that's the simple past. Past participle, it's again cut. My hand had been cut yesterday. Then transitive and intransitive verbs. A transitive verb connects the subject and the object of a sentence. In simple terms, if I say, a transitive verb is something that connects the subject and the object of a sentence. The subject of a sentence is the person, thing. So what is the subject in a sentence? The person or the thing which is doing the action. That becomes the subject. The object of the verb is a person or thing affected by the action. So any person or thing doing an action becomes subject, and any person or a thing which has been affected by that action becomes the object in a sentence. A direct object can be easily identified by asking what or who to that verb. So basically, if you look at it, how do you find the subject in a sentence? You can ask the question what or who, and you will get the answer to that becomes what do you call it, the subject. I was hit by a cycle. I was hit by a bike. So which is the subject in this? Is it bike or I? It is I, because who was hit? I was hit. So now I'll use the same example and I'll say I hit the tree, or I punched the tree, or I punched a tree. Which is the subject here? I again. I, because who is doing the action? I punched. Who is the object here? The tree. Now we'll just look at this example here. Reba opened a bottle of milk. Reba opened a bottle of milk. Here the object, the bottle of milk, is the direct object of the verb opened. So what was opened? A bottle of milk was opened by Reba. So the bottle of milk becomes the object, and who opened it? Reba. So that becomes the subject. And then we do not add a preposition between a transitive verb and its object. Okay, so we did not add a preposition between a transitive verb and its object. He wrote a letter to me. No, it is not written as he wrote for a letter to me. No. She drew a beautiful sunset. You cannot say she drew to a beautiful sunset. So an intransitive verb is a verb that does not have a direct object. The action of the verb is not transferred to any person that is affected by it. So when you have a verb in a sentence, and the verb actually doesn't say who or what is affected by that action, then it becomes an intransitive verb. So an example is when I say I'm writing. So I just said I'm writing. Writing to whom? No, I didn't say that. So writing here in this sentence, writing becomes an intransitive verb. But if I change that sentence to I am writing a letter, then is writing still an intransitive? No, because I'm saying what am I writing? I say I am writing a letter. So it has an object. So then writing becomes a transitive verb. So when you do not specify the place or the thing or a person on whom the action is affecting, then it becomes a intransitive verb. And when you specify the person or the thing on which the action has been performed, then it becomes a transitive verb. So transitive and intransitive. So we have looked at two basics of the English grammar today. So nouns and verbs. Please feel free to ask any questions if you have. Okay, all right. So we'll push the class. We'll close the class for today. It has been wonderful, talking to you all. Please give me the feedback so that I would know what to improve or the areas in which I'll have to make more changes if there is anything that I need to do. So have a good day. Have a great weekend. Bye. Hello. Sir, Paris. Ah, okay. ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ അല്ല ഞാൻ ചെക്ക് ചെയ്തപ്പോഴത്തേക്കും ഇതുവരെ ക്രെഡിറ്റ് ആയിട്ടില്ല എന്നാണ് കാണിച്ചത്. ഞാൻ ഞാൻ ട്രൈ ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുകയായിരുന്നു.